Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world in 30 answers. Discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and today I'm sitting with my friend Alex Russan of Metrick Wines. We're in Santa Ynez Valley in Santa Barbara wine country. And welcome, Alex, and tell us a little bit about Metrick Wines.
Metrick Wines is my budding project. I started making wines at home back in 2010, 2011, and started importing wines from Spain. And I have, the label is Sherries, Alexander Jules, and working with the producers out there, I quickly started getting the winemaking bug again. So it's kind of my excuse for wine exploration, or my personal little experimentation lab.
Right. I think you were telling me that every time you have a question, you just make wine to figure out the answer.
Yeah, I thought that was part of it, because I kept having all these questions working with all the producers in Spain, and I thought, if I start making wine, I'll get all the answers. But then I realized that that's really not the case, and every answer you get 5 more questions. So.
Great. So tell me a little bit about where Metrick is located. Are you purchasing fruit? Do you own any property? And what are the grapes you're working with?
I do not yet own any property. I'm working on 2 leases right now, currently buying fruit from 5 people this year, with varying degrees of involvement, in the viticulture. I am doing 2 Pinot Noirs, a Sauv Blanc, a Albarino, and a Cab Franc. Pinot from Santa Rita Hills, Sauv Blanc from Presqu'île in Santa Maria, thank you, and Cab Franc from what is now the Los Olivos AVA at Rock Hollow, and Albarino from the Paragon Vineyard in Edna Valley. So Santa Barbara's a focus, but I dabble here and there. One of the Pinots is from Cambria. And
how many cases of wine are you producing a year?
About 300, give or take.
A small little producer.
Yes.
And on the sherry, how much sherry are you producing each year?
I usually bottle every 2 years, and it's thinking in terms of bottles, maybe 1,200 bottles or something every 2 years. It's a small thing, and sherry is very niche, so it's become more of a calling card than a moneymaker.
So what is your first memory relevant to wine?
Sneaking a taste of white wine from my mom's fridge, but my mother to this day insists that white wines keep really long time, so the wine was very old, probably months open, and I have a vague memory of what that tasted like in the label.
Well, it didn't turn you off to wine.
No, apparently not.
What was the first or most memorable wine you've drunk, and what was that occasion?
Oh, man, that's a very hard one. Let's say the first that got me excited, I had 2 Trader Joe's wines about 3 weeks before I turned 21. One was a Merlot, and I don't remember what the other one was. And a friend's older brother that we all idolized was very, super intellectual, well-read guy. And I went, oh my God, these are so different. I wonder what that's about. So I turned 21 3 weeks later, bought a Bogle Petit Syrah, and that was even more different. And then started buying and tasting. And to this day, it's kind of the same thing. Everyone's different. And so that's my half answer to your question.
So traveling the world abroad, what's the best foreign wine you've ever drunk?
Best foreign wine I ever drunk. The best wines I've ever drunk would probably have been foreign, to be perfectly honest. But I'm really into Mencia right now in Spain. That's the grape I'm working on getting grafted over here with the leases. Most memorable foreign wine I've drank. Things that come to mind are old Trockenbeer and Auslese Riesling. I think it was 63 or 64. I had at the wine house when I worked there after college. Yeah, a lot of them are old Rieslings. Yeah.
Do you remember the worst wine you ever drank?
No. I worked in coffee for a long time, and I had to taste so many defective coffees that I don't really... I don't get so offended that they become memorable.
Among all the populations of the world, who do you think drinks the best in terms of quality?
I could not tell you. Maybe the New Yorkers, because they've got everything at their fingertips from all around the world. And they have an older, more developed, and I think more sophisticated wine culture than us, despite how trendy it can be there. So I would, off the cuff, as Bobo would say, New Yorkers probably.
I'm not sure if you've been developing a wine cellar of your own, but if so, what's the most expensive bottle you've got in there?
Probably no more than $100 or $200. I was buying in like 2010, 2011, and I don't remember a lot of what I bought, but that would have been when I would have put the fanciest stuff in there. Yeah.
From any particular region or producer?
No, I'm super all over the place with what I drink. There's some nice California Pinots. There's a couple of decent Burgundies, some nice German stuff. But I mean, I got all kinds of oddball Spanish and French and Italian things in there.
Do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
No, definitely not.
Simple answer.
Yeah. Because any variety is going to perform different in any place you put it. So it would have to be a perfect variety with a perfect site. But even among like wines of the greatest quality, there's going to be differing opinions on what is the best within the upper echelon. So I don't think that there's possible to. Yeah.
And what is your thought about wine critics and scores?
I think it's a useful tool for having a conversation but I think it often misleads people, particularly consumers, and drives trends for weird reasons and for very strange palates often enough. So, it's useful, but it's very complicated. Find a critic you like who's calibrated with you, who has similar tastes to you, and then jump in.
Absolutely. Now, as a wine consumer yourself, do you have a preference when it comes to red, white, or rosé?
I'm probably 60-40 white and red. I don't really like rosé. I always want to like it, but the wines are usually just very simple, fresh, still taste like fermentation, and they don't excite me. And if I wanted like a very simple alcoholic drink, I'd rather have like a Pacifico or a glass of scotch or something.
A simple drink, scotch?
Well, that wouldn't be a simple one. But if I was going to have a alcoholic drink, I'd probably go for a crappy beer or some whiskey or mezcal over like a simple wine, which, yeah.
Still or sparkling wine?
Still 97% of the time. Not for any particular reason.
And when you open up the sparkling, champagne or from somewhere else?
I work with some really awesome cavas, so I'm like really into cava, and very shocked that, champagnes are obviously magnificent wines, and but they're so acidic, and this is from a guy that loves acidity in everything. Cavas are so much more friendly to drink because they're not so insanely acidic. So I think people should be drinking more cavas. As mentioned, I may be somewhat biased to that, but yeah, is anything interesting.
And when it comes to food and wine pairing, are you a stickler for the rules, or have you ever broken them and done like a white wine with red meat or red wine with white meat or fish?
I'm like a really bad wine person in that I rarely like pair things, and I know stuff about pairing, but I'm not like, I don't really geek out on it or like get that excited by it. I'm much more interested in just like sitting and hanging out with a wine, and the food often almost feels like a distraction. I'm really into wine. I'm not that into food. I'd rather have a burrito or pizza most of the time. I'm kind of a plebeian in that sense.
Okay, so if you're not eating while you're drinking, you might drink a little too much and end up with a little hangover. So I'm wondering if you have any special remedies for hangovers.
I almost never get hangovers. However, I am a big believer in a shot of sea salt water before bed. So you don't pee out the water, you retain it in your cells.
Interesting. What do you think a non-drinker loses out by not tasting your wine?
I think I'm making wines in a way that is relatively atypical in California. I focus on freshness. My wines have a good amount of acidity, particularly the whites. I go for more earth tones versus fruit. And I think your average California wine is more body and fruit driven versus acidity and elegance driven versus power driven. So I'm doing my best to make the most magnificent things I can and learning every step along the way and trying to figure stuff out. So they're missing out on perhaps some nice elegant wines and some hopefully interesting explorations.
So if space aliens were to land on your property, which of the wines from your cellar would you give them to taste?
One of the wines that I make, or from my locker you're talking about?
Either one.
All right. That would depend on how nice they are if I wanted to share the locker stuff. I'm really excited about my Sauv Blanc right now. But I'd like to fast forward a few years to when I've got some Mencias in the bottle, which I'm beaming excited about. And aliens that beam the light, so that, some connection there.
Okay. So each vintage tells a different story. I think you would agree with that. So do you think that there are more things that repeat themselves each year, or the opposite?
As far as consistency in the bottle?
Or no, in vintage. However you want to define that. It could be what you're seeing throughout a year in the vineyard, or how that plays out when it's in the bottle.
Yeah, two answers to that. There's the answer that we're in California. We don't get harvest rains most of the time like they do in Europe. We've got much more intense sunlight. We've got much more heat. So we've got much more consistent vintages relative to Europe where, struggling to get sugar ripeness is a thing. Here we get sugar ripeness well before we get other ripeness, and it's a whole mess. That said, every vintage is quite different, and no matter what you do in the cellar, if you're aiming for consistency, that will be different. No matter what is happening in particularly the last few weeks of ripening, is going to be different. So they may not be these drastic changes like we see in the old world, but there are definitely tremendous differences.
Do you personally have any good luck rituals for when harvest is about to start?
Trying not to think about it or get stressed out about it until the absolute last minute possible.
And do you capture any signs or omens each year to predict the outcome of harvest?
No, I'm not superstitious in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I don't know if this is superstition, but a lot of winemakers will walk in the cellar and talk to their wine in the barrels. Do you? And if so, what do you say to your wine?
I think at most, maybe on occasion, we'll tell them hello and goodbye, or if something's surprising, "Ooh, you're tasting good today," or "Oh my God, what the hell is wrong with you today?" But I don't think it goes much beyond that. Yeah.
So some people read tea leaves in the bottom of a teacup. If you could read the bottom of a red wine glass, what would you like it to reveal?
Nothing in particular. Be nice if it was a nice older wine and maybe there's some sediment at the bottom of it. You're saying it's like a future revelation?
Yeah.
Lottery numbers would be great. I'm not a gambling man, but if it was a sure thing, I would take it. Yeah.
Okay. When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Professional skateboarder, a sniper, a Ninja Turtle, a lot of different things, yeah.
And before you wanted to be a winemaker, what did you want to be?
I had absolutely no idea. Everyone always told me, I don't understand why you're not working in wine. I worked in coffee for about 10 years, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. Wine was always my love. They said, I don't know why you're not working in wine. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I would want to do. And it just kind of ended up, one day going, hey, I want to do this barrel-selected sherry project. That seems like a good thing. And that developed into the importing, because as I mentioned, sherry is such a small thing. And that developed into winemaking commercially. So
you naturally evolved into this.
Exactly.
When you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
I have a very strong love affair with my hammock. Reading or audio books. Obsessed with my poodle mutt. Those are definitely the ways I spend most of my off time.
Do you do any sports?
No. I'm shamefully lacking in the exercise department.
Do you have any sports teams that you follow or root for?
No. I'm from LA. I'm happy when the Lakers are doing well. Mixed feelings about the LeBron thing there, but no, not particularly.
Okay. Do you have a favorite singer or group?
Parliament Funkadelic and George Clinton. And Miles Davis from 68 to 73, and Lou Reed.
It's a good broad list of music.
Well, got to keep it interesting.
Do you have a favorite film dedicated to wine?
I have a least favorite film dedicated to wine, but that wouldn't be nice to say, so not that anyone
Oh,
can.
Come on. You can share that.
I'll tell you after.
You're going to keep everyone guessing.
If they've seen it, they'll know what it is. This is a really shamefully bad movie.
But no favorite?
A favorite wine movie? Honestly, I really like Sideways. I'm embarrassed to say it. I live in San Ynez and all that, but like that's an awesome movie.
Oh, I love it too.
Yeah.
I think it's a good example of the wine industry, of just wine lovers, and it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, funny, fun. Yeah.
So if you're planning a romantic evening, what wine would you order?
It depends on what we're eating. Despite what I said earlier, depends on what we're eating.
And let's see, what was the best piece of advice you ever received?
I'd want to give you like a really well thought out answer to that, and I have no idea.
Okay, well, how about if you gave us some advice? You want to give us some advice?
Taste as many different and diverse wines as you can. Don't keep it figure we're in, I'm the wine theme here. Don't get too stuck in one region or one grape or one style. Like, check out what's out there. There's so much out there.
What is your proudest achievement in your work to date?
I'm like one of those sick people that, like, by the time I achieve something, I'm working on something else. So not very good at prideful moments and these sorts of things, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Complete the sentence. A table without wine is like?
Table that I don't really want to sit at unless, there's friends and good food there.
If a VIP from any walk of life was photographed by paparazzi in a restaurant, and in the back of that photo was a bottle of your wine sitting on the table, who would that famous person be? Who would you want them to be?
I mean, is it from a marketing perspective or from like, oh my God, I love that person perspective?
How about both? Or your choice? Who do you want to be drinking your wine?
I would love for George Clinton. You know what? Howard Stern. I would love it for to be Howard Stern. He doesn't have very much wine, but he's a person I have a ton of respect for and enjoy a lot. So yeah, would be Howard.
Okay. What sort of wine do you think will be drunk in the year 2300?
If we exist and if viticulture exists in any way we're remotely familiar with, in the New World, I'm guessing new hybridized varieties that are better suited to whatever the world looks like then and are hopefully even better than what we're working with now and better suited to our unique climates and lands. Old world will be interesting to see because I doubt they'll be as inclined to mess with new hybrids and things like that. But I think the answer, I think, depends a lot on climate change and where that goes or bounces back or not. And but I think hybridized grapes will probably have a lot to do with it in the new world. I'm hoping. I'm planning on doing some hybridization, and I think that we can find a lot more interesting varietals to add to those that we already have.
So I'm going to send you off to a deserted island, and you can only take 3 wines with you. What 3 wines would you take?
Manzanilla sherry, some bright fresh white, and a light funky red.
And what is a winemaking area in the world that you still want to explore?
Can I tell you the only one I don't want to explore? I don't want to go to Germany. They were some of the first wines I loved, and in exploring a wine region, you learn so much about it, but some of the romance and mystique does go away, at least in my personal experience, and I do not want to know anything. I want to keep that sacred and mysterious to me.
I've been to Germany, and I think your romanticism of it would be continued.
Really?
Yes.
Can you offer me any kind of insurance just in case that is not the case?
I think if you stand over those steep hills with the vineyards and you look down and you think about where that wine is, what those grapes come from, and then you taste those incredible Rieslings, I don't think you'd be disappointed.
I'd say probably a very good point, yeah.
Well, is there anywhere you do want to go?
I've never visited, wine-wise, I've really only visited vineyards in the U.S. and in Spain. I'm dying to check out France, interested to check out Italy, Austria. I'm going to Brazil this winter. I may do some poking around there to see what interesting things are bubbling.
So our last game at Wine Soundtrack is to play a little bit with music and wine and what we'd like to listen to, or what sort of songs or types of music are conjured up when we drink certain wines. So what does cava make you think of?
Ooh. Cava, maybe a little relaxed, little Brazilian 1950s, 1960s, samba-esque, something relaxed and beachy.
And what about a dry sherry?
Dry sherry, something a little harsher, in the best way, of course. something salty, maybe. Now I'm getting back to the sea, but they're salty wines. Late 1960s semi-pop rock, but some a little funky, maybe, yeah.
Okay. And how about a Grenache? New World.
I don't really like Grenache, so I would just put up something. I'd put on something I really liked and ignore the wine, probably.
Okay. What about a Cab Franc?
Cab Franc. Something a little broodier. Some Rammstein. No, I'm just kidding. Nothing against Rammstein, but maybe like a Berlin. Now, I'm thinking Rammstein, so now I'm thinking Germany. I think that's where they're from. Berlin, the Lou Reed record. Something a little kind of like melancholy like that.
Okay, and now going to your most romanticized wine, German Riesling.
I don't want to listen to anything with that. I just want to drink the wine. If forced, those are too pretty for distraction. I can't do that. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Alex, for joining us today. And if you can just remind people where they can find your wines.
Yeah. www.metrick, METRICK, wines.com. That's my grandma's maiden name. If you're ever in the Santa Barbara County area, give me a shout. Would love to pour for you by appointment only. And check out my sherries and my Spanish imports at alexander-jules.com. And Jules is Jules. Picked out lots of names I have to spell for people.
Fantastic. Well, have a great afternoon. And again, thank you for joining us on Wine Soundtrack.
Thank you, Allison.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.